That is good banter.
All right, we are back. Timmy, what's going on, mate? Tell us what's happening.
Testing 1, 2. Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Good Banter podcast. A very special episode. We have
big.
We have a guest for the first time in 138.
Well, on the
episodes.
Patreon, we had Matt O'Neill. Remember,
yes.
we had Matty there, who his big job, his claim to fame was he used to remove jizz off the front of porn.
That was his job.
Porn covers
Because you couldn't have jizz.
seminal fluid.
Yeah, on
the front of covers.
His job was graphic artist, and he used to remove jizz removal. So a little different, our guest today, although he may have done that. Maybe we'll get to that later on. So we have Melbourne and Collingwood legend, 198 games, 99 goals, the one and only Lynden Dunn.
You. Great to have you here, mate.
Thanks for having me, boys. It's exciting. I've done some shit jobs in my time, but I can't say that I can tick that box.
I haven't removed no jizz removal.
Well, Matty said, you thought, well, what did your wife say? And they said, well, they had 2 kids. He had to take the job. So, he said he was just, yes. But he said some blokes got a bit too into it. It's like their life became porn and, they're living under a bridge now. But, yeah.
So when I messaged you the other day about potentially coming in, you said you just put together a bunk bed. So for the kids,
yep.
Because Evan was in a was in a bunk bed till about the age of 24 with his brother. They just had the 3-bedroom house.
Well, I think I went into. We got our separate rooms when my younger sister moved out. So it was. But she was pretty rough in the old bunk bed, mate.
So did you put it together yourself?
No.
Got someone in?
Yep. They come recommended with someone to put it together.
Yeah.
I can't hammer a nail into a wall.
Okay.
So, if me and the missus try and put something together, you know how that ends. Not well.
Not well, no.
So I don't even bother. Probably the best $150 I've spent.
Yep.
He put it together in about 25 minutes. As you said also, mate, trying to put the bottom bed together with linen and doona and change the sheets is a nightmare.
Oh,
I hit my head 5 times in the first 5 minutes, I reckon. But that probably says more about me than the bunk bed.
Yeah, I reckon our kids could shit the bottom bed, and I reckon we'd just tell them to maybe move over a bit or put a pillow in it, because changing that bottom sheet is it'll tear a couple apart. But is there a little bit of you that when you make the decision to get someone in to put a bed together or put a barbecue together, is there a little bit of a kick in the guts or you've just accepted it now? It's money well spent.
Accepted it for a long time. Yeah. Don't try and be someone you're not.
Yep. And
I'm happy to use my time elsewhere for that. Well, it takes them 20 minutes, half an hour, but it would take me, honestly, 4 hours, and I would put a screw where it shouldn't go, or the ladder would be upside down, or something would go wrong. So it's not even worth the trouble.
But you look like a bloke who would fit in on a job site, I reckon, Dunny.
Absolutely.
You look like a man.
I wouldn't be very productive on the tools, but I'd add a lot to the
banter.
banter.
That guy
sweeping
and just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fucking Dunny's had 10 chocky milks today.
I reckon I could putt around a work site for about 3 years and not lift a tool, and no one would know. I'd just pretend that I'd just blend in, chameleon.
Just look busy.
Yeah,
look
absolutely.
busy. So what? What did you want to? Obviously, you had the dream of playing AFL, but did you have any jobs that you sort of thought, I wouldn't mind doing that? Because I know a lot of guys, while they're playing AFL, on the side they'll do a day's labouring or with a chippy or something like that. Or you thought, fuck it, I'm an AFL footballer. Stuff working.
No, I always, from about 4 years old, I always wanted to play footy.
Yep.
But I always wanted to be a chef as well. So did cooking at school, and I'm a grumpy bastard sometimes at home as well. So I probably fit right into the culinary space. And then I wanted to do a bit of youth work. Never wanted to be a school teacher because I knew that they got paid bugger all.
Yep.
And what a nightmare dealing with other people's kids. It's hard enough trying to deal with your own sometimes. So I think I wanted to be a chef for a long time.
Tough hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I do a lot of the cooking at home still.
Okay.
You'll have to ask my wife how good that is. But
she eats it?
Yeah, she eats it.
Do the kids eat it?
Yeah. Pick and choose, mate.
They're inconsistent,
half on the floor,
aren't they? dish up a nice dish and they love it. Dish it up 3 nights later and fucking no
Don't
chance.
want to know it. We've just got those plates where it's separated, like 5 different little spaces on the plate.
Oh, yeah.
You just whack them in, let them go. I hate cleaning up after dinner because there's just shit everywhere.
Yeah.
But the kids will sometimes just pick it up and watch your face and drop it on the floor and just see your reaction. And I'm trying to chew the inside of my cheek so I don't.
That's when you Gordon Ramsay it. And just
absolutely.
fucking give it to him.
What a man.
Yeah. What a great guy. I love it. So that's not. We were actually chatting before we started the pod that you're my brother's age and you sort of butted heads a few times. He was Eastern Rangers. You were Calder Cannons and you smashed them in the 2004 TAC Grand Final.
Yeah, a long time ago. Heater and I don't think we ever came to blows physically with each other, but I was a forward growing up and he was on the ball. But we played a lot of footy against each other, being the same age, and we actually played together in the under-15 schoolboys too. And then Heater went to Essendon, played VFL against each other. And having never met you before, Evo, and then mentioning the name and seeing the face, it's absolutely you're his brother. You could actually be Heath.
And I love it when people say that you do look like, because he's 6 years younger than me. Yeah. So I picture that's a bit of a win for me.
He also wouldn't have laid eyes on Heath for about a decade, which probably helps you a little bit.
That's right.
What was he like? Was he Heath? Was he lippy? He wouldn't have been lippy, would he?
Oh, he's not much of a talker. No, he's lippy to me. No, he was more the punch in the ribs down the hallway kind of thing. Then I smash him back. Mum, haven't hit me, you little fucker.
Yeah, I'm the oldest as well, and I used to get that from my middle brother's 5 years younger.
Yep.
We're chalk and cheese, get on like a house on fire now, but growing up I was a lot bigger than he was, and you just look at him and he'd squeal and I'd be in trouble straight away. Next time you'd line him up just a little bit more to make it worth it.
And I find you don't have, because my brother was always a fair bit smaller than me, so you didn't really have, like, if you and your brother are like 1 year apart, there's a real rivalry. Whereas when they're a bit younger, they sort of bitch and moan a bit, and you don't have that real button heads kind of thing.
So how much younger is your brother?
So I've got a 5 years younger, 9 years younger, and then my sister is just about to turn 20.
Oh, Jesus.
So dad remarried.
Okay.
She's actually going to taking off to South Korea tonight for a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
South Korea.
She's going with a friend and going to duck over to Japan as well, I think. So good luck to her.
So what are the big tourist things in South Korea?
Not sure. You don't want to wander too far north, though. I know that.
No. Well, I don't know. Can you get in?
Touch each other. You go straight from south to north, or is there a central Korea? Or be close.
Well, that soldier recently thought he'd just wander over the border and then found himself in strife for 3 months when the North Koreans found him and the Americans told you about that?
No.
Okay.
I could tell.
No, run us through.
No, that's about as much as I know. All I know is he was in South Korea and he crossed the border as he's in the military for the US.
Oh.
And they found him.
Yeah.
He was stuck with them for 3 or 4 monts and they've just released him. So
Jesus.
Maybe get him on your next podcast. Be a bit more exciting than me.
No.
I can tell you what's happening with Peppa Pig and Bluey, but don't watch a lot of news around at our joint anymore. Mate, what else are we? We listened to your when you're on the pod with Swanee, and one thing that you touched on that I've found myself wanting to know more is that you were in the box in the 2018 Granny.
Yep.
So obviously Bucks didn't have everyone up there. So he obviously I don't know whether you really respected your opinion and wanted your feedback, or he just sat you there for the experience. So how did it come about that you were?
Firstly, can I ask? So you obviously missed out on that grant. What happened there? How'd you miss?
That was the year I did my first knee.
You did your knee.
Yeah. So I did my knee in round 14 or 15.
Yeah.
And then had my surgery, and I was doing coaching in the AFLW with the Pies. And so Justin Longmuir was the defensive coach.
What's that?
Hang on. It'll be my phone. But I don't know what's doing that.
Swanee and friends just popped. Oh, maybe it was Siri.
Oh,
Siri.
She's a real bitch.
She's a mole. That's a worry, isn't it?
You mentioned Swanee and friends, and then the podcast popped up. Yeah.
Well, why didn't porn pop up when we were talking about jizz removal?
Clear that old history, mate, before the
Oh, don't worry. There's a fair old clean out about 10 minutes before she walks through the door. I usually just burn my phone in the backyard before she comes
Tommy's like he's like a crook. He's got 4 burner phones, and you selling drugs, Tommy?
Out the backyard just under the trampoline.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it. Well, we've discussed on a previous one. If ever one of us dies suddenly, we want our money in the will to go towards getting just our fucking history, just, like burn our house down, burn our computers.
Yeah.
So, so that was your first knee.
Yeah, that was my Sorry, mate. That was my first knee. And then I was doing some coaching. I'd been in the coach's box from about, I reckon, round 17 or 18. So it's not like I just popped up their grand final day.
Yeah.
But I was with because I was on the long-term injury list.
Yep.
I could actually go onto the ground as well.
Okay.
Which I didn't do all the time, but helping Longy out with the backs, seeing how the boys set up behind the ball.
Yep.
Bit of our ball movement. It was great. We had a fair sort of coaching set up too with the Pies. Had Robert Harvey doing the mids, Justin Longmuir was doing the backs, Brenton Sanderson was doing the forwards.
Yeah.
Bucks was obviously in there. We had Buddha Hocking in there as a line coach. Matty Boyd came through as well.
Buddha, good bloke?
Good bloke, yeah, ripper.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was watching Scrolling, stuck in a real hole last night, and he popped up. Was with a Richmond player I didn't know, but there was a bit of a argy-bargy on the centre wing at MCG, and just watching Buddha Hawkins go, mate, put one right here. That's my Buddha.
Well, he had a head that you couldn't. A bit of panel beating would have been.
The greatest clip of all time was when he fell out of that hot dog van.
We'd
show that once a week, and he absolutely hates that.
I did a gig down at the team he's coaching in on a Thursday night, coaching down in Geelong, and I grabbed one of the boys and I said, "What are you? Any dirt?" And he goes, "Mate, just mention the hot dog, just slipping down the hot dog stand." And I did, and the place just erupted. It is like never dipped at all. It's just fuck it. You can watch it a million times.
It's so good. He hates it.
Yeah.
He legitimately hated it, or
he hates it. Yeah. Legitimately.
Fuck, it's funny.
Well, it's funny as well because I did a gig with Dipper the other week, and Dipper elbowed 89 grand final, and just Buddha, he just spat his teeth out everywhere, and
tough.
Jeez,
actually,
just brutal.
I was a Hawthorn supporter as a kid. I grew up in Essendon. Didn't have many friends at school, fair to say. But the 89 grand final is, infamous for how tough it was.
Yeah.
People were actually mentioning, that besides the granny this year, that was probably almost the last time that it was as good. I mean, the 05-06 grannies with West Coast and Sydney were pretty handy as well.
Not a lot of scoring in those ones, though.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah. No.
But, obviously Dermy got lined up and played with a punctured lung, I think. And, Dipper was nowhere for most of the game.
He was telling the story. Punctured lung at... he was close to fucking dying.
Yeah. I think he played the whole game. As soon as the siren went, he laid down and they got him straight to hospital.
He was in there for 9 days or something.
Yeah. And then you see Nathan Murphy this year carry on like a pork chop, plays 2 minutes, gets subbed out and still gets a medal. Jesus.
Was that his choice? He was told he couldn't.
Murph. Yeah, well, he would have taken the easy option. That's what Nathan usually does. But to be fair... he's a courageous bastard, Nath Murphy, but he's not very smart either. So there's courage and there's been just a half-wit.
Yeah.
You put those two together and he's already had 10 concussions, so you got to be careful. But it was unreal to see players like him that I played with get a medal on the day.
Yeah. It would have been a fair chunk of them, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Bit of jealousy there, mate. I mean, it's easy to say, I've never won a senior premiership, and we've gone through this a number of times on the pod. I played up at Port Douglas and captain and all that, and since I've left, they've won about 7 premierships in 9 years, and there's a big part of me actually that fuck you.
Yeah.
I think it's been long. If it's the next year. And jealousy is probably the wrong word, but it's been long enough now that you're happy. You're always happy for him, but a little bit of fuck, I wouldn't mind being out there.
Well, yeah, I suppose the hardest thing is that, 2018, I was injured, knew I wasn't going to play a long time out.
Yep.
And, the prelim against Richmond where we absolutely smoked them was one of the all-time highlights of my footy career. Emmett, my older son, ran out with the boys that night.
Yeah.
which was really special. And then the grand final itself was amazing as well, even though we didn't get the result. But you look at sort of Tay Adams this year, and I've had a brain fart here.
In the back line, not Noble.
No, Johnny Noble missed out as well. Who's my mate from Brisbane? I've absolutely had a brain fart here. He hurt his knee in the prelim.
Come on, Siegert.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. We'll just edit in.
Edit his name in.
McStay. Yeah.
Oh, Dan, I'm sorry, mate. Please don't ever watch this. Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure Dan McStay's not watching this, mate.
But Tay Adams especially, where he's in the best team. Dan's hurt his knee 6 to 8 weeks, but Tay's just hurt his hamstring in a training session in the bye week. And, Tay would have absolutely wanted the boys to win.
Yep.
But when they do win and you miss out, it's bloody hard.
He was shattered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't spoken to him about it, but I would say that has played a part in him sort of moving to Sydney and, as you get older, you become more on the fringe and that sort of thing. Tay's got a lot to offer at AFL level still, but it'll hurt Tay for a long time. And he wouldn't have wanted anything more than to see the boys on the dais.
Yep.
But that's something I didn't. We lost by 4 points, and I wanted the boys to absolutely win as well.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing is with AFL footy is there's only 23 medals that get given.
Yep.
Whereas EPL, it's a season long. There's no finals. If you play 1 minute or every minute of every game, you get a medal or a ring. Same in championship basketball, NFL. They're all best of 7. So you can play 1 minute in one game and you're a champion, world champion. But unfortunately with AFL, and I don't know how you fix it, but if you're not out there on the day, you're just not a premiership player. It's hard. It's probably the worst thing about the game, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty easy, not an easy fix, but I mean, you could give it to everyone on the list if you played a game. There's something, it does make it a bit more special, but it would be a tough juggling act for the coach to not have that divide a team. Like, I'm not even they go in the middle. I'm even a bit funny about that there's guys that miss out on that. When the sun's gone down, and I saw something on the Collingwood socials the other day where they it was something that's a premiership reunion, and all the players were out for dinner, and I was looking, and it was only the guys that played in the game. I was like, fuck it, like, I don't know whether that was intentional or it would be hard for Taylor Adams to be there and see all that. Like, it's a tough one. And
Fly spoke about it too with the coaches. So there's obviously the Jock McHale medal for the coach, but none of the other coaches don't get recognised.
Yeah.
And you see, God bless the umpires, they all get. I mean, they don't all go individually up on the stage, but they all get a medal or whatever they get for representing the umpires in the game. Why don't the coaches all get medals? There should be, absolutely should be medals for the coaches as well. But
it's a tough one. Yeah. So while on the pies, we had an interesting. Where did we have the gig at the cricket club the other?
Somerville.
Who was the guy that was at Collingwood? Sean, he was sort of coaching at the time.
Oh no, I forgot his name. I've actually met with him.
He was a ripping bloke.
I'm not sure. I was packing all the gear up.
Oh yeah,
you were chatting
on the beers, chatting with people. But he said something interesting that sort of, I reckon, sums up the whole why Fly's been able to make the little bit of difference. So he was at Collingwood at the time, and I said, because I did my gig, that little suburban footballer thing for Richmond and Carlton, and it was in this little room, and it was this little theatre. It was probably 70 seats, all 70 were full. It was just electric. The atmosphere was unbelievable. You didn't need a mic. Everyone was in close. And then I did the Collingwood one, and I'd really look forward to that because I've been a Collingwood supporter and had all the dirt. Yeah, you were there, and it was good. It was okay, but it wasn't as good as the other ones. And the main reason was the room. Like, it was just this big empty, cavernous. It was just, and there were guys sitting up there. I remember, I think Robert Harvey or someone was right at the back, and it's really lacked atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I was having this chat with this with this guy, and he said, mate, funny you should say that, because the day Fly came in, he did his first talk in that room and walked out, and he said, fuck that, I'm not doing that. I feel like a lecturer. He goes, I need it to be intimate, because he'd been at Richmond, and he goes, we need to get another room. And they straight away built him this little room that where it was more like a chat.
Dunny wouldn't have helped out with that.
No,
he wasn't there. But yeah.
No.
And I reckon that really, it's a great example of just the little things, because Buckley probably, and everyone else probably a million times had thought, fuck, it's not great, but, we're not exactly going to build a new room. We're not going to, this is a multi-million-dollar complex. We're not going to, but it's that he made, I don't know, is that something you...
Well, I've actually been to that Richmond theatre, and it is intimate and close, and didn't really think about it as a player.
Yeah,
I kind of like the more space and
I guess
sit where you like. But the coaches would generally sit in the back 2 rows.
Yep.
The players generally sat in the same seats every time.
Every time,
it's one of those things.
Yeah.
But never thought about it being an issue. But then when you talk about it, and people come in and see us, and we would have different presenters come in, and they absolutely, you feel like you're almost in a spotlight on, centre stage at Broadway or something with doing your own act. And is anyone in the room? Who's following me? Is anyone asleep?
Yeah.
Didn't think about it as players much, but absolutely made sense. And I've been back to the club since, and the little room where they do it now, the boys just circle up. There's just chairs and beanbags and blokes laying all over the place. And everyone can see everyone in a circle. So Fly, I've heard that story before, and change things up with that. That's just the sort of person he is and the coach that he is, I think. And one of those small little things that most people don't think about.
Yep. Yeah, nice one.
So we were chatting that you're in the box before we sort of got a bit sidetracked there. So about 20 minutes ago. But it's good. It's a loose chat. It's great. We're going to riff on that. So you've done your knee. You're in the box. Bucks said, Dunny, I want you in the box. Or did you ask him, and can I sit up there? Or how'd that?
No, so I was already in the box. Like I said, I've been doing the coaching from about around 17 or 18. I've been in the box from then. So nothing had changed.
And so you were given input?
So I would basically, not directly, I could say something to Bucks and chat with him. But I would speak mainly with Longy.
Yeah.
And we were sitting right at the front, sort of the boxes mapped out. So you sit in the same seats every week. So Bucks can sort of knows who to speak to at the right time. And
who to punch.
So, but there's like 3 headsets. Bucks has got a phone, but there's a headset down to the bench. Nick Maxwell would sit on the bench. And then Marcus Wagner, who was footy ops, he would sit on the bench with another headset. So there'd be 3 or 4 lines of communication with the bench.
Yep.
And everyone's respectful, and it's got order to it. It's not like the old boxes where you just see blokes going off the tree, David Parkin and these sort of guys. Everyone hears everyone. If Bucks has got a question about the contest or how we're moving the ball forward, he speaks to Sando or asks a question, and everyone's very clear. So it's run very well, and it was great to see it as a player. It's not for everyone. Like the AFL box, there's a bit going on.
Oh. Was that a point where you thought maybe coaching was something you wanted to get into?
So I was already interested in coaching. And I was coaching the girls. I did that for 4 years, which was great. So I sort of thought, while I'm injured and can't play, I might as well keep myself busy and stay involved with the team. Because I was in the leadership group. We were obviously going pretty well. So you want to keep things going well. And I still felt like I was a big part of the side.
Yep.
So I wanted to be there and give my best self every week. And it was a great opportunity for me to stay involved. So that's what we did. And I went onto the ground at the breaks because I was on a long-term injury list, which was unbelievable. And I'll never forget the 3/4 time speech after we had the huddle, and the 23 boys, with the sub, stayed on the ground, and Bucks has given his final address, and I was in the huddle as well. There was just the 25 of us. And then we ran off the ground, and Bucks and I were going up the back of the stairs. So you go down between the benches.
Yep.
And the stairs are up the back.
So you're just walking with Bucks?
Just me and Bucks going back up to the box. And the crowd went bananas. We heard it, and Geordie kicked the goal in the first couple of minutes. And Bucks and I actually stopped walking up the stairs and looked at each other and like, holy hell. We had this moment where, Bucks is obviously an icon of the game. and he's one of my mates, and I could ring him any time and he'd pick his phone up. But, to find myself on grand final day at Collingwood with Nathan Buckley in the stairwell, we just stopped and looked at each other and were like, we're on here. This is like, this could be unreal.
Yeah.
And then, of course, whatever happened. And, it was still one of the great days of my life. Would have done anything for the boys to have got up. Yeah. But, to have that moment with Bucks and then go back up into the box and, 5 minutes in, might have been 10 points up or 2 goals up or something. And the coaches start talking about what happens, what do we do if this happens? So they're planning scenarios. So if we kick another 2 goals, who goes behind the ball?
Yep.
If they kick 3 quick ones or, who goes into centre bounce. So they're the crowd's going bananas.
Yeah.
But the coaching box is so quiet and so calm that they're just thinking about different scenarios.
How much obviously those, the glass is obviously soundproofed and that, but how much is sort of leaking into that box?
You can hear the crowd. You don't, unless someone sort of stops right at the glass and gives you a bit of feedback.
Yeah.
You don't hear too much of the individual sort of conversation, but you absolutely hear the crowd. I mean, you can hear the crowd from over the road at the Holdens.
I was at that game, and the amazing thing I reckon was how actually quiet it got for that last few minutes. It was just like no one could even. It was just 100,000 people. It was fucked. Like you could hear it was almost like going in and watching a Caulfield Thursday night training session. Like yep, and you could hear the kick. It was eerie how quiet it got for that last few minutes. Fuck. And then when the siren goes, I mean, obviously, how long do you sit there, or do you?
Well, I was first one out of the box because I wanted to get down to the boys.
Do you want to maybe run through the last part of the game before we go to because obviously she takes the mark.
Well, it was a bit of a breakdown.
What happens there? What's going on in the box? It's probably a bit of a blur.
Well, the ball went inside. I remember the ball went inside our 50. We went forward, and McGovern took the mark.
Yeah.
So he takes that mark, and the way that West Coast just had the wood over us.
Yep.
So the way that they would play and move the ball, they would make the ground really big. And they would kick mark.
Yep.
But they would go and stand on the boundary line because our defence was so good. And you've sort of heard, Fox Footy and that speak about the bubble defence and everyone within sort of, 70 metres of the ball. So West Coast plan was to kick mark and make the ground really big and open up the gaps and then sort of get the handball game, running game going through forward to centre. So we went forward quick. McGovern takes that mark.
Great grab as well. It was a huge grab.
And then they went down the Warren stand wing.
Yep.
And Bruzzy Maynard should have got a free kick.
Yeah.
He got pushed out. I don't know how that wasn't a free kick, and that'll go down in folklore.
There's another play. So he hits the ruckman. McGovern hits the ruckman.
Yep.
And then he goes long, and there's the mark.
Liam Ryan took a...
Ryan.
Yep.
Who shit his pants earlier, but all of a sudden he got courage over the last 15 minutes.
And Dom Shee gets one in the pocket.
But also when Ryan marks it, the ball goes on the ground, and he doesn't. Was it Langdon? What's his name?
Yeah, Langdon. Not Ed. Tom.
Yeah. There's something like did he give the ball back? Does he flick the? And I feel like if he had just left it, when
they could have got the ball out of bounds. I remember that. It was right near the boundary line, and the ball just stayed in. It's a coaching nightmare, and it does my head in now when I'm coaching when the ball just doesn't go out of bounds and give everyone a reset. And then it trickled down the wing, and it was like fuck up after fuck up, really. And Sheed ends up with the ball. But that vision of Dom Sheed, the vision behind him when he kicks that goal is unbelievable. It's a great kick.
Oh, it's amazing.
And the abuse that was a metre and a half away from him. Yeah. He would have been getting death threats, family threats. Like, you fucking know.
Dom Sheed didn't realise how many people had fucked his wife.
She's been busy.
She never told me about that.
He knew after he kicked it.
Yeah.
But then I left the box. We're all shattered. And I went downstairs because I wanted to get around the boys. And the boys were just laying everywhere. And what do you do?
Nothing.
It's pretty cool. But the thing I learned, because I wanted to play in my first grand final, I'd never been. And footy nuffy from way back.
Yep.
But I always wanted to play in my first grand final. And so that was the first time I'd actually ever been. And having watched mates play, I played in a VFL flag myself and watched mates play local footy. there's absolutely no difference, like, between in a grand final. Like,
yeah.
Clearly, the AFL Grand Final is the pinnacle, and it's the best day of the year.
Yeah.
But when you're involved in it, it just feels like another grand final.
Yeah.
It's strange, but that's the life of being an AFL footballer. It's what you know. It's like me saying before about Bucks. Like, now I'm just mates with Bucks.
Yeah.
But everyone looks at Nathan Buckley as, superstar of the game and coach and been involved, for 25 years. But when you know the people closely, it's just like...
It's amazing how normal they are.
Just normal.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like, we've got Lynden Dunn in your lounge room, and it's like some people would idolise you. It's like my brother. Some people idolised him. You go, he's just my brother kind of thing. So it's just what you get used to. Because I remember people just going, oh, what's it like living with an AFL footballer? I said, well, pretty fucking boring, to be honest.
Yeah. And I played with a lot of blokes. Like my best mate who played at Calder with me was a gun junior, very good senior footballer, won 4 local flags at Strathmore. And he played under 15s, under 16s, 17s and 18s Teal Cup for Vic Metro and just never got drafted.
Who's that?
Dale May.
Right.
Just so many blokes that would have done anything to have been given a shot and maybe deserved it. And then you see blokes come through the system and float through that maybe doesn't mean the world to them and they don't really try their hardest, or they're sort of just there and living off the fact that they're on an AFL list, but they don't actually really care. And that's the hardest thing, is that you see the people miss. It's the same in life everywhere. So you've got to get lucky. You've got to, But
imagine the days of the drink cards and all that sort of, the real. They were going out, every Friday and Saturday. Geez, a lot of guns must have been lost.
Yeah,
back then, just hit the piss, couldn't deal with the the girls and
it started mid 2000s. It sort of started to change. You remember North Melbourne in the 90s? Like they would play on a Friday night, have beers on a Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. But they would always train hard, but you just couldn't do that.
No.
Later on, it's just not possible.
Yeah,
and that's why Swanee's amazing, because he got away with murder for so long. And but would always train super hard and work on his craft and put into his body, but then when he let his hair down, which was more often than not, and he's such a good player.
Was that something Collingwood probably would have been aware that he was out and about. I mean, it's hard in Melbourne to sort of do that, but because he was training hard and performing, was it something? And did they put it? They didn't put curfews on the players or anything like that while you were there?
I never played with Swanee. He left the year I got to the Pies.
Yep.
But there's no doubt that the clubs know, everyone talks, like all the players are best mates.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what everyone's doing to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like you sort of look at Favola maybe and Ackermanis, so very, very good players at their peak. But as soon as something goes wrong or they're not performing on the field, they're out the door quicker than most.
Yep.
Because you lose your value. Like if you're not playing good footy and you carry on like a pork chop, you sort of get found out pretty quick. And Swanee was just always a gun. He was,
it was a gun till the end, wasn't it? And then because it just ended so quick.
Yeah.
Like there was no fading out or anything.
Yeah, because I reckon he hurt his ankle in that round 1 or 2 game against Sydney.
Yeah. And it was over.
It. Yeah. It ends pretty quick for you. That's the thing.
Well, it does. And I guess the thing, I know from playing football, and a lot of footballers talk about they never really enjoyed it because they're always you sort of, at what point did you sort of get to at what age where, okay, I'm a regular senior player? Because I know when you're on the cusp, you're like, oh, you're fighting for a spot, and maybe you don't enjoy the process of playing football because you're like, oh, if I have a bad game, I'm going to get dropped. Was there a certain amount of years where you were comfortable in the system?
It's funny. My versatility was always a strength.
Yep.
And I played every position on the ground at AFL level, like second rucked, wing. I tagged for 2.5 years. I was a forward. I was a back. Been the sub. I was subbed out once. Probably should have been subbed out a lot more than I was. But I literally, the only time I ever got the red vest, we played St Kilda one night. I was at Melbourne, so we probably would have got pumped.
Yep.
And I kicked the goal just 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. And it was probably the first passenger play I'd actually affected and had a decent touch.
Yeah.
And then the runner came out and goes, come off, mate. And then red vest straight away. Sat on the bench
straight
for the rest
after
of the
a goal.
game.
Yeah.
That was a weird feeling. But I think, my versatility was always a strength, but I never owned a position on the ground for a long time. And that's when you find yourself in and out of the team.
Yeah.
You need to own hone in on your strengths and really, fortify yourself in one position. Whereas I could get thrown around everywhere and do a job, but then come selection or it's like, we can leave Dunny out here.
Yeah.
Or maybe put him in the green vest or whatever it is.
You're not the automatic.
Yeah.
Well, these are the fullbacks and halfback.
I loved footy training. I was always a great trainer. Always worked really hard. And I was never really talented like other players. Like for me as a player playing with other blokes and now coaching, it's the talent versus work rate. And I hate talent. You need it.
Yeah.
But I would rather a bloke that, is a 5 out of 10 talent-wise, but works his ass off and is more reliable.
And a lot of time, they're not the players that all the supporters love and stuff like that. It's the real sort of, maybe harping back to my brother. He was like, so many people go, I always wanted him in the team because he'd give everything and work hard, whereas he's not the flashy sort of guy. And maybe you were a bit like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was never flashy. I've got a creative mind and I was a pretty good kick. I think my kicking was one of my strengths as a player.
Yep.
But I'd get into trouble sometimes making the wrong decision or biting off more than I can chew. I remember one day we played, this was when I was a defender, and Jade Rawlings was the defensive coach at Melbourne. And we had a really close relationship for a long time, and we're still mates. But I remember I took a mark. I reckon I marked the opposition ball coming in, took a mark, and I would have been just in front of the races at the MCG, maybe 35 out from goal.
Yep.
And Jack Viney, and I love kicker barrels.
Yep.
And I had a license sometimes to kick out of, I've got a couple of stories about my barrels.
A license sometimes?
Yeah, no, I had a license from fullback when everyone was on the same page.
Yeah.
I'll come back to this other story.
Great.
Yeah.
But Jack Viney was running down the other wing like an NFL quarterback throwing a ball away. And I've seen him run down the far side. I've kicked a barrel across the MCG.
Yeah.
And I've absolutely laced it.
Oh.
Running back, and we kicked the goal. And straight away the runner came out to me and said, Dunny, Twig said, if you ever fucking do that again, you will not play another game for this football club.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, well, it's fair enough, but it's pretty good
see
kick.
that?
Did you see that? Did you see it?
How far do you reckon it went?
I would have. It probably went 60 maybe.
Yeah.
But absolutely, he didn't break stride.
Oh.
Yeah, but it doesn't always go to plan like that. Like one day we played, Paul Roos was coach, and we played Port Adelaide at Alice Springs. And it was fairly close. Yeah. And Port kicked a point. I was the designated kicker in from full back. And, we were 4 points. I think we were 4 points up maybe, or it was bloody close. And Bernie Vince was on the goal line with me. And I'm like, Bern, I'm going to kick a barrel. Tell the boys we're going straight down the middle. Didn't need to do it, but that's what we'd organised.
So you're up by 4?
I reckon we were up. Maybe we were up by 2 points.
Yeah.
Or we were just down. But either way, it was close, and I didn't need to make this play. But I thought, fuck it, I'm going with it anyway. And told Bernie, I said, tell the boys we're going down the middle. Bernie sort of nodded at me and didn't really tell the boys what was going on. And I've kicked the barrel and absolutely shanked it. They've marked it, handball, straight back over my head.
Cool.
And we lost by 5 points or something. And Roosy's trying to come in and change the culture and get us going. And anyway, after the game, he's like, Dunny, are you happy, mate? Are you happy? You've just fucked the game for us, mate, because you wanted to kick a tall. Are you happy? And every time
Were you happy?
No, I wasn't overly thrilled. The boys are like borderline sniggering because they're just like, what have you done, mate? Like,
yeah.
But I got to hear you sort of dragged Bernie Vince in. It sounds like even if he did tell the blokes, it doesn't make any fucking difference.
I'll tell the boys. It's like a bit humble. And every time I see Roosie now, he's like, mate, do you remember that time you kicked that torpedo out of Alice Springs and almost cost me my coaching career? I'm like, I do, mate. Yeah, sorry for that.
How many years did you have with Roosie?
I reckon 3. So 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, and how'd you enjoy him? Because I, been a Sydney supporter, I sort of watched when he came over from Fitzroy in the 90s, and then obviously coached him that flag in 2005, and met him at a Sporties and just seemed like a ripping bloke.
He's good. He the best thing about Roosie and his coaching is so basic. Like, he just breaks the game down. Like, it's all don't miss tackles.
Do torps.
Don't fumble. Yeah, don't do torps when you're not supposed to. But
don't tell Bernie Vince anything.
His philosophies are very basic, and that's like footy.
It's a basic game, really. And like you look at some of the footy shows now, and the way they're breaking down the game, I'm like, are you serious? Like,
yeah, and you can talk about those things and strategies, and I'm obviously lucky because I've been in the system for a long time and seen it sort of evolve. But coaches on the outside are always looking for flashy ways or flashy plays or things to change the game. But basically, if you don't pick the ball up off the ground, if you don't tackle the opposition when they have the ball, if you don't kick goals when you've got a chance to hit the scoreboard, it's bloody hard to win.
Yeah.
And trying to get everyone on the same page. Like if you've got 10 blokes that are going this way and you've got 12 blokes that want to go that way, it's bloody hard to win.
It's not like basketball where you can slow it down and get everyone into like how much in that De Goey's goal to put him in front in the granny and everyone's saying, set play, set. How much? Because a few things happened in that 10 seconds. Like fuck, that can't be part of the plan.
It's funny. Like and Pendles is the GOAT at it. Like he's like a coach on the ground.
Yeah,
he just sees the game. So like Pendles. I actually thought that, Caden Coleman was probably the best player on the ground in the first half for Brisbane. And Bobby was obviously very good as well for the most of the game. But Scott Pendlebury's second half in this year's grand final is one of the all-time performances.
He just had some clutch, mate, where it just a cool head, hit a target. Yeah.
Take the sting out, but do the basics well. And he obviously does extraordinary things as well. But his second half... I couldn't believe he only got one vote in the Norm Smith voting. I thought he was almost going to pick Bobby. But that's only my opinion. But, having known the man as well, and he's the best captain I've played under, and I've had some great captains.
Yep.
But he is just all-time for that on-field leadership, calmness, do the right thing at the right time, do the extraordinary thing when you don't expect it coming.
Yep.
But the boys are just... The Pies boys are just clear on like that centre bounce. They know who goes in. They know the hit out.
Yep.
They squirt a kick forward and forwards play in front. You get a mark, and then the midfielders spread from stoppage, and things happen.
Yep.
But if everyone's on the same page, so it doesn't guarantee you anything, but it gives you a chance.
Yeah. So who was the captain at shaved head at
Jonesy?
Jonesy,
yeah,
good captain.
He was. Jonesy was like he got drafted the year after me, and we were so lucky to have him for a long time because. I think at Melbourne, besides my first year at Melbourne, we had some very good players like Adam Uze, David Neitz, Cameron Bruce, Brad Green, Aaron Davey, Jeff White, some serious players. But after my first few years, I don't think we had any A-grade, like proper A-grade AFL players at Melbourne.
Yeah.
Jonesy was obviously our shining light for a long time, and we were very average.
Yeah.
And we had some other good players, but until you looked at Collingwood's team in 2010 and you've got, Didak, Maxwell, the best defender in the comp, Sidebottom, Pendlebury, Dane Beams, Swanee, just got cloak up the field. Like, you just got talent all over the field.
Yeah.
Whereas our Melbourne, for whatever reason, we just didn't seem to have that. But Jonesy was a great captain and he's a great man.
Yeah.
Pretty calm and measured, and obviously got a fire in his belly as well, which comes out sometimes. But he was a great captain. I was vice captain under him as well, so we were very close for a long time. And he grew up in Mount Eliza, but basically Frankston.
Frankston.
And I was from Moonee Ponds, but it's basically Broadmeadow. Very similar backgrounds. And it was hard because we didn't. Everyone sort of asked me what was Melbourne like. When you don't know what you don't know. I got drafted to Melbourne as a 17-year-old, and that was my life as an AFL player. That's what I knew and what I saw. And it's not until I went to Collingwood that you sort of, when you get older and you're like, geez, what was going on? Like the board was pulling strings.
Yep.
Were you ever at the Comics Lounge one Sunday? Richmond do it every year, and they basically raise money for their footy trip. And Melbourne did one year at the Comics Lounge in Errol Street, North Melbourne. And I was one of them. They got basically some comedians put on a show, and we got signed jumpers and stuff. The Melbourne players were there, but they were also supporters, and the idea was they raised money for their footy trip. And I remember I was amazed how fucking blind, like it was like It's like what you'd expect if you went to the pub in Wodonga. Like I remember thinking, these are professional footballers. I remember Jonesy and that they were fucked.
Yeah.
Like, and they were sort of like there were a few boys arguing and stuff, really getting real lippy on the piss, like you would with your mates.
I was there. What time of year was that? Was that after the season?
No, it was definitely during the season because I remember thinking, Jesus, like this is pretty. And I remember, I won't say it here, but there was one guy that went pretty hard on, and he got a bit pissed off because Jones and a couple of others told one of the comedians to mention something, and he did, and it went down like a lead balloon.
Yeah, right.
I remember thinking, oh God, like
I remember
really
being
awkward.
there. I remember organised because we did footy trip very well at Melbourne.
Yeah.
I've never missed a footy trip.
Well, you had a bit of time to plan them.
Absolutely, yeah. We knew from the 1st of September we were free until the 1st of November.
Did you ever have a footy trip in September?
Yeah, we had multiple. Yeah, we'd already finished, mate.
No. But at what point can you book in a September footy trip?
As soon as you can't make the finals.
I guess mathematically, yeah.
Yeah, but generally you've got the best and fairest to consider as well. And, we had some footy trips where you go straight away and then you come back for the best and fairest. Other times you'd have the best and fairest and then go away.
Yeah.
I had a couple of those where you have the best and fairest and then you're at the airport at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and
good
you'd have
feeling.
either an hour's sleep or no sleep at all, and straight into it. But the Melbourne footy trips are synonymous and unbelievable, and they were run the same way from the early 80s right through to when I finished. So the Grand Poobah runs the footy trip, and I did the last 3 at Melbourne, and there hasn't been a Melbourne footy trip since I left in 2016.
The Grand
Poobah, kind of out of the Flintstones.
Oh, yeah.
So the Poobah, and there's the Monkey Committee who sits with the Poobah.
Yeah.
I could talk about footy trip all day. Best time of the year. Obviously better after you've played finals and won a flag. But they've been run the same rules from the 80s through. Yeah, it's like a temperature check, so your beer's always got to be warm. No one's allowed. Ratty Rod Piper.
Your beer's got to be warm?
No, your beer's got to be cold. You can't have a warm beer. Always got to have a beer in your hand.
Yep.
Ratty Rod Piper rule where you go around the circle, and if anyone's been too loud, they have a skull. If anyone's been too quiet, they have a skull. No green.
Yeah.
No one's allowed to leave the happy hour circle to urinate until there's a break. So you just hear like the drips. Like some blokes will just be sitting in their seat and they just start pissing themselves because they know that they're not allowed to leave.
Yeah.
The happy hour circle. Bloody good times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you always go overseas?
We went overseas. I went on 11 trips at Melbourne. Overseas every year except once. We went to Cairns.
Yep.
And we had to change hotels after night one because we were thrown out for lobbing eggs off one of the balconies at some of the boys walking on the ground.
Where would that have been? What's that, backpackers?
Oh, they wouldn't have stayed at Gilligan's.
No,
they would have stayed at.
We didn't stay at Gilligan's. We were there every day, obviously. But we didn't stay there. I think we were a little bit smarter than that. Or some of the older boys wanted to stay at one of the hotels.
Yeah, you don't want to hang. Well, maybe you do want to hang out with backpackers, but maybe have your own room. Yeah, it's not. I know blokes who have been on a footy trip to Cairns. They've gone from the airport to Gilligan's, stayed there for 4 days. Literally have not gone out of the joint.
You don't need to leave.
Bus back to the airport.
Yeah.
And what was Cairns like? Oh, I don't know.
Gilligan's,
yeah.
Well, there's a pool in the middle.
Yeah.
A bar there, yeah.
Yeah.
The infamous Kryptonites, which is the Maduri and the Smirnoff Blacks.
Smirnoff Blacks. That got my brother in trouble in 2008. 2008, because he had a footy trip in Cairns, and then he stayed up for. I was living in Port Douglas at the time, and mate, the Kryptonites fucked him. He was best on our Mad Monday.
That's when you know you're moving. You're on someone else's Mad Monday going all right.
Oh mate, he was paying people to smash him in the face. It's like he'd only played I think 3 games at that stage, so that was 2008. I think he played 3 games that season, and. He was lucky he didn't rock up with a broken jaw back to pre-season training.
It's happened before. I went to Thailand a few times and came back with bandages, and I fell off a scooter, sober every time, but fell off a scooter, and I had a scab on my leg for 6 months, and I just every time I slid at training, blood. It was in the worst spot. I've got scars all over my legs from my surgeries, but I have already had scars all over my knees from falling off scooters in Thailand and carrying on like a pork chop.
Yeah,
not
great.
the best. Probably the best recovery is just wash it down with a bit of filthy water.
The worst one, I had to go to the hospital every day, and it was like when they cleaned it, it was like putting razor blades through the leg because it was pretty deep.
Yeah.
And I'd go out and get absolutely hammered every night, and you feel good when you're hammered, and then you wake up the next day and you've like
knees blown up,
shit all through it, and you got to go and get it cleaned again. But the things you do.
Yeah. Did you ever get to Vegas on the trip?
Yes. That was probably one of the better footy trips. Dave Neatz's last footy trip in 2008.
Is that why? Did they want to do something big for him?
Yep. And it was lucky because we turned 21 that year, which was handy.
Oh, yeah, yep.
One of the boys actually turned 21 the night before the footy trip. So we were in San Francisco.
Yep.
And we went out and it was about 10 o'clock and he was turning 21 at midnight.
Yep.
And the bouncers looked at his card and said, no, not 21. And he's like, mate, it's almost my birthday. And they let him in. There's 28 of us in Vegas for 5 days.
Fuck.
It was very good.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the photos actually just popped up recently at the rehab pool party in at the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
And it was 15 years ago. So it popped up, I think, last week sometime.
It's the greatest place on earth. Like, no place has you're done. You can't go any harder. You got anxiety. You're never going to drink again, and you just walk. You walk into a bar and you're like, I'm fucking good to go again. Like it just has this amazing
the blackout windows.
Yeah. This amazing ability just to get a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh wind. Oh, I love the joint.
And I reckon you would have done all right on footy trips, but some of your top performers at Melbourne and Collingwood who.
Geez, Brock McLean early days was very, very good. I've never.
Elsie.
Sorry, that's the dog.
Yeah, Brock was very good. We went to school together and both from Calder. And I've never seen a man put 7 stubbies down so quick.
Yeah.
On a footy trip and then run nude down the beach.
Yeah.
And you could hear him. It was dark, but you could hear him run past all the restaurants on the beach, and you knew every time he ran past it, it was like getting further away.
Yeah, great.
Paul Wheatley was very good.
Yep.
Wheaters was Brad Green, exceptional footy tripper. Frank Grimes, Jack Grimes.
Oh, yep.
Who actually turned vegan later on in his career and fit as a fiddle, but would just come out of his shell every year for footy trip.
Nice.
I mean, it's the only thing we had, like I said before, at the D's. We never played finals, so it was all about footy trip performances.
And during that time, like after a game, were you allowed to sort of go, you're probably not really going out after games at all, really, are you?
Oh, it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
If you've got a 6-day turnaround, you're not really supposed to go out.
No, that's right.
By the time you finish doing your recovery,
yeah.
You're absolutely knackered as well. But you just got to pick your moments.
Yeah.
It's hard. As you get older, though, you just sit on the couch and have a bottle of red to yourself or something and not on your feet or it's probably being on your feet and going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning that ruins you the most. Whereas, if you're at home and have a couple of beers with the boys in bed by midnight, 1 o'clock, makes it easier.
Yeah. Without pissing in your pocket, like everyone you talk to about yourself, you're a fairly like you were a likeable player. Everyone you wouldn't have had many enemies, I wouldn't have thought. When you used to go out on the piss and so forth, and obviously drunk blokes, would anyone challenge you, or what was it like going out? Was anyone hanging shit on you and looking to start trouble, or was
the hardest thing is when you go out together, and it's pretty easy to notice. The boys when they're out because we're obviously quite big and loud and do drink a fair bit. So you can always see the boys when they're out. It's funny you say I'm a likeable player. My teammates always liked me, but I was always hated on the field.
From the opposition?
Yeah. It's one of those things where everyone thought that I was an absolute knob from opposition clubs. I'm like, what's that Lynden Dunn like? And the boys are like, no, he's great.
Oh, is that because you're lippy?
I was just lippy and always competitive. And I'm more than happy to fight anyone during a game, but as soon as the final siren goes, you just switch off and I'm happy.
Yep.
Just pick it up, shake hands, have a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
I found a lot of blokes can't do that. Then they would just carry. So we'd have words during a game or have fisticuffs and then they just can't park it, which I don't like.
Nah.
But I've been told so many times, they're like, oh, you're actually not a bad fella.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, thanks. That's really nice of you to say that.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's just the competitor in me.
Yeah, the white line fever. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. You get that with local as well, blokes who you on the field go, he's a fucking flog. And then you have a beer with him after. You go,
he's
great.
all right.
A lot of them most people, they're sort of the same. Most blokes are pretty much the same.
Yeah, there's not many people that you sort of play with that you genuinely don't like.
Yeah.
Footy clubs are great places. And
yeah.
even now, the diversity, within teams, you sort of, you look at Collingwood and, you've got your Geordie De Goeys and Braden Maynards who are the animals and always up and about and real loud. And then, Pendles and I suppose Brodie Grundy as well, a little bit quieter.
Yep.
Tom Langdon was a bit quieter. Even Ads Trelaw when he was there. He's got so many different sort of characters that sort of fit in together. But the great thing about footy is
brings them all together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You used to think a footballer they're all sort of tarred with the same brush. Footballer was a footballer. God, there's different sorts now, isn't there?
Yeah, and having a joke now is celebrated.
Yeah.
I still remember when Richmond, just before their sort of dynasty, Jack Higgins had the boys at 3/4 time and was telling a joke or a story, and they were 2 or 3 goals down, I reckon, and they came back and won.
Yeah.
But they've got Jack Higgins just telling a joke at 3/4 time, whereas when I started playing, if you weren't serious or if you lost the game of footy and you caught up with a mate and shook his hand and then was seen having a laugh after the game, you got thrown under the bus. He doesn't care and jumper doesn't mean anything to him, whereas now the game's gone, it's finished, too good on the day. Just enjoy yourself and be yourself, really.
Yeah.
Was it certain coaches? I know I did a sporties with Craig McRae, and he said when he got there, he sort of felt like he sort of had to. The guys were maybe a little bit insular and a bit
tense
after Bucks left, and he sort of felt like he had to sort of loosen them up. Where it was okay to guys, we're playing AFL football.
Yeah,
let's enjoy this. Did you? I mean, obviously you're a great mate of Bucks, and you obviously got on well with him, but do you reckon there'd be some guys who are sort of like a little bit scared of maybe Bucks? Or?
Well, it's funny. When I came in 2017, there was, some angst towards Bucks as a coach, and the boys weren't thrilled with all of his sort of philosophies and the way that he went about it. And that was spoken about in the media, and, Bucks was sort of on the cusp of, will he be the coach in 2018? Will he be out the door? And then obviously, Bucks changed as a person and a coach and sort of tipped in more emotionally to the broader picture. And then we had the year we did in 2018 and, Bucks is a very intense person. And there's no doubt the boys might have been tense, but it never really felt that way. Like I said, when you're in the moment and you're there, you don't feel that as such.
Yeah.
But then when you remove yourself and you look back, 2-3 years, you're like, oh, geez, we were a bit uptight there and walking on eggshells at times and never felt like that. Certainly there was more moments at Melbourne where, we were nowhere.
Yeah.
And you sort of noticed that a little bit more in the moment. But even like I spoke about before, the times at Melbourne, it wasn't until you look back and you're a little bit older and wiser and you're like, what the hell was actually going on?
Yeah.
And as a vice captain, obviously you are in the moment, but there's some games where you're saying to how the fuck are we going to win this?
Yeah.
The games where you're like, come on, boys, we can win this.
Well,
in the back of your head, you're like, we're fucked.
It is funny. Like, as bad as we were, like, even the day we lost to Geelong by 186 points.
Yeah.
And I kicked 2 of our 7 that day. I always make sure that I played role and I actually did my job that day. Every time I ran out for the Ds, I thought we could win.
Yep.
And the boys were all the same. There's never a moment when even when we played Hawthorn, Geelong in their prime.
Yeah.
And even going over to Perth and playing West Coast or Freo, every time I ran out, I thought we could win. And then you get to quarter time, you're like, what was I thinking? Like, where are we? We're absolutely nowhere. And I actually never won my first game at Subi until my first year at Collingwood.
Yeah.
And I reckon my average losing margin over in the West was about 12 goals.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's any level of footy, I reckon. Like I went through some fucking dark years at the Bears where we were like 30-goal drubbings, and my wife just used to laugh. Like I honestly,
it's good to have her support.
Honestly thought you could win, because you've seen the guys at training hit a target. They haven't done it for fucking 27 rounds on the ground, but you've seen it happen at training. You're like, if it just gels but it very, very rarely did. But it's amazing the optimism of a footballer.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a cycle every week. You get smashed on a Saturday, you have a few beers Saturday night, get home later than you should. Feel sorry for yourself Sunday. You rock up to training sore Tuesday. Then the bit of noise Thursday, a couple of beers, feed, play some cards, read the team out. You're all excited again. Yep. Get to Saturday and you get smashed again. It's funny though, especially with local footy, and I talk to my boys about it. It's halftime of the twos when both teams meet on the ground. Both teams are happy, kicking the footy around, jovial, making like both teams feel the same way. So don't ever think that you're just rocking up game day and you're just going to play well because you feel good or you've had a joke or because the other 22 blokes that you're playing against have done exactly the same thing. But they might have had a better week on the track and they might actually be better than you are. So try and you want to keep the emotion high, but you don't want to be driven purely by emotion. And it's like when you read your best team on paper, but you don't, this bloke's out of form, this bloke hasn't had a kick, this bloke hasn't trained in 4 weeks. Yeah. The team on paper to the 22 that actually roll out at any level is always very different.
Yeah, it's a good point because that's just the name.
Yeah,
that's
it's just the name.
That's not the form.
And at his best, he's very good and could be the best player in the comp. But right now, he's got one hamstring. He hasn't trained in 3 weeks. He's got 2 screaming kids at home.
Yeah, he's blowing with his missus. he's fucking, it's a good point.
But
that's why the game's so good. And that's why winning is great. And, you know, flags aren't everything. They're bloody good when you win them. But there's only one team every year in every comp that can win it. So if you hang your career on flags, most blokes would be pretty miserable and disappointed when they finish their careers because they're bloody hard to win.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about footy and or any sport is like the losses obviously suck, but the wins and other people, it amazes me that some people go through their life, just there's no wins, there's no losses, it's just safe, no sport, there's obviously have their own highs and lows, but I just love that.
And you do sometimes if you're having a shit year, but you might remember that time. Remember when we went out there, no one expected us to win and we knocked them off, and you almost treat that as your premiership sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's great. So,
my 200th, I would have told you a story. My 200th game, we was round 16 and we were 0-15, and we're playing a team that was second on the ladder, had just beaten the top side the week before. I think they were third, had just beaten the top team, and something fucking happened. It was unbelievable. We just went bang, 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 and we ran out of legs, and they came home. We ended up winning by, I think, 7 points, and it was just unbelievable.
At the cave, was it?
Yeah, at the cave. I had a heap of mates come along, and an old coach spoke to the boys just before he ran out. It was the greatest speech, actually. He was normally pretty simple in his speeches, but he said once a year, it was back when the results from the Herald Sun, and he'd go, you look through the Herald Sun and you're like, that doesn't make sense. How did they beat them? Once a year, you just see results that just don't make sense. He just yelled it. He goes, "Why can't that be us?" And everyone was like, and it was like, "Why can't that be us today?" Yeah. And it was sort of fucking hell, maybe. And it just something happened, and then we were that up and about. I reckon the week after we got beaten by fucking 25 goals. It was unbelievable. Straight back to reality. Yeah.
How many papers did you buy on Monday?
All of them. Yeah, it was a big. She was a big night.
Yeah. So, and did you have a callback to the Torps at all? Was that, or you've done that?
No, that was the Roosie story.
That was the Roosie story. Yeah, great.
I did. Yeah, I used to work on my Torps after training. Like you get a bit of time to do your marking or kicking, and I'd wander down to the goal square and let a few fly. And,
let them go.
Yeah, they were actually. It was probably about a 5-year period where I was hitting them pretty well, and I sort of thought maybe I head overseas and go and try and play NFL or not go to college because I'm not smart enough for that. Don't like studying, but I never wanted to cut my my AFL career short because I always wanted to play footy and it's the greatest game in the world. Yeah. And then I ended up playing until I was 33 and 2 knee recos later, so it didn't really pan out going overseas. But I always thought about it. And I'd kick a few gridirons in the off season and sort of flirted with the idea, but never really went anywhere.
So just quickly on your knees, I've always wondered this. So you've done 3 now, two on one on the other. Is there like are some knees weaker? Like do you have? Is it proven that your maybe tendons or whatever was weak, or is that 3 times you've been really unlucky, or is it, or is there? Because some guys, people that do one, seem to do a few. Is there like any?
Well, I was so lucky for so long, uninjured. Yeah. I reckon every time I'd get injured, it would be off the field. So I remember I was living with my grandparents in my first year I got drafted, and there was a 2-step landing down, and the cat was on the bottom landing. And I tried to jump behind the cat, and I wanted to land right behind it and scare the shit out of me. And I banged my head on the roof, right on the top. 5 stitches on the top of my head, and almost knocked myself out. Another time watching the cricket at home, jumped up, wicket, jumped into the fan. I cut my knife in the kitchen. I cut my finger off almost in the kitchen. God knows how many times.
So the footy field was your safest place.
Yeah. And obviously being a chef was never going to pan out either.
I actually did my hamstring tendon in the grand final sprint one year, and I didn't know.
You did the grand finals?
Yeah, hard to believe.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because, like, you sort of, sometimes you harping back to me, but a lot of people thought he was slow because the way he looked. And people might have thought, Dunny, he's a bit of a plotter.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't there to win it.
No.
I was roped in pretty late, but it's pretty good. They give you $1,500 or something to do the grand final sprint and a ticket to the game. So it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Got out of the blocks really well, and then got to about the 60-metre mark, and blokes just start humming past me. And then I got to about the 80-metre mark, and the hamstring just went a little bit tight.
They're starting to bounce the ball at the third quarter, and you still hadn't finished. Like, there's
Still
something not right here.
Get him off the ground. Who is this prick? And then, so I'd never done a hamstring, but I didn't feel it go, but it grabbed, like it got tight.
Yeah.
So obviously had a big day that day with the boys on the beers. Went into the club Monday and said, hamstring's a little bit tight from the grand final sprint. Did a few tests, and they said, just don't run this week. Give it a week. You'll be fine. Got into pre-season, and then for 3 weeks I couldn't kick a footy over 30 metres. I had no power, and I could generally kick a footy pretty well.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks I trained, and I had a torn hamstring tendon, and I didn't know. And that was from the grand final sprint. But I was so lucky for so long. And my first knee I was press up spoil, and I landed with a straight leg. So I've landed with a straight leg, hit the ground, and that's when you don't have any angles in your joints, all the force goes from your foot straight to your knee. So when you land with a bent leg, there's your ankle, knee, hip, you sort of break the velocity through your different joints. But it did my knee, I ran off the ground. Was painful for about 30 seconds to a minute, like most people when they do it. Jogged off the ground, I knew I'd done something, but didn't know what. And then they do the test, and Doc's like, I think it's loose. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And then, and that was my first knee. And then I did my second knee, first game back. We're playing Richmond at Punt Road in the VFL in a pracky game, and got through the first half. And then the third quarter, I was 60 out from goal on the mark. And I think it was big Ivan Soldo.
Yeah.
And he tried to balk me, and I went to push off this leg, and I actually felt my knee. Like the second time I did it, I knew I'd done it again straight away. It was a proper twist like that. It's the grossest feeling I've ever felt. Yeah. And I knew then that was 9.5 months post. But
do you reckon they didn't fix it right? Or?
No, it was just one of those things. Didn't have it strong enough. Who knows? But I've done all the tests, and then that's been fine ever since. And then this year at the Bears, I actually reckon I went to my best mate's wedding, and I had him on my shoulders, and I was carrying like a pork chop, as you do, having a great time. And the next day after the wedding, I woke up and I had a really sore knee, and it was really sore. Got a pretty good pain threshold, but I almost couldn't walk. And then I sort of gave it time, could run. At training, I'd put a bit of heat on it. It would warm up really well. Wouldn't think about it, but it was just a little bit sore. And then when I did it, I heard a huge crack. So crack's better than pop. But I knew I'd done something. But I reckon and I've actually done, I fractured the bones. I chipped something. It was a mess. It was like hamburger with the lot is what the surgeon said. But I reckon I did something to it at the wedding maybe.
Yep.
Who knows?
How long was the wedding before?
It was middle of March, and then round 4, so it's a couple of months.
Yep.
Who knows? But it was a pretty innocuous hit. I already kicked 4 goals 10 minutes into the second quarter, thinking you're going okay, and then you just get that reality check. But this time because this was my good knee. I don't have a good knee anymore. I've had a cadaver graft, so I've had a deceased person's tendon put in my leg.
Yeah, right.
Which has been really good.
Nice.
And you don't have to rehab your hamstring or your quad.
Is it one of those ones where you get to pick
Well,
whose
I made sure
tendon you can have?
I made sure Julian. I'm like, mate, can you please get me like a 16?
Oh, Julian Fella?
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, he did mine. He did mine, eh?
And he's a prize man. So I've put the last couple of stories on his house with the amount of times I've been in for surgery. Hopefully I don't have to go in again. But it's just one of those. Who knows?
Do you know who's, maybe not the person, but do you know it was an 18-year-old girl?
I should ask him. I don't know if
he's like picking a sperm donor.
Yeah,
where you're like, I wouldn't mind someone.
I don't know how it works, but he said, I'll make sure I pick the proper tendon. But I don't know whether they're in a jar on the...
Maybe a drug addict. They're pretty flexible, those fuckers. They sort of move around a bit.
Anyone's better than mine anyway. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, good luck with it, mate.
Yeah, and it's the last time. If it goes again, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm trying to get the Bears their next flag, and I want to play in a flag before I hang them up. So that's
the goal.
That's the intent behind coming back.
Yeah, well, good luck, mate. Good luck. And I reckon, we're basically...
how are we going for
that? We're like sort of... Yeah, we've been an hour 10, so we can get Dunny back on another one if save some questions.
Great. The one thing I did want to ask quickly was I guess the Steele stuff's probably a bit long, unless you... We've got 10 minutes or so? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
The other one was,
for it, yeah.
The Reece, when you gave... Was it Reece?
Reece Matheson on the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Because the commentators love that.
Yeah, and he kicked the goal too, the prick. I hated that. I wasn't actually playing on him at the time, but I ended up on the mark and obviously knew that the shotgun was his thing.
So he'd been doing it in the lead up, had he? In the games?
Yeah, every time he kicked the goal, he did the shotgun.
Fucking hell, he carries on.
And he got that from, I think Mark Williams did that.
Mark Williams did it.
He was the first one.
Yeah.
And so it's a carry-on celebration. It's a bit like Dersma's arrows. There's no need, but it's not American sport.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, if it had been his, go with it.
Yeah.
But Mark Williams has already done it.
Yeah.
Get your own.
Yeah. Martin Bryant did it in 96.
Yeah.
So.
Mind you, jumping in, we got yours up, your first goal back against Adelaide when you it's a fair bit of fucking carry on after that one, though, was it?
Well, I said it in the post game interview. It's like the forwards had kicked 3 goals 10.
Yeah.
So let's make the fullback who's just come back from 2 knees and 700 odd days from playing to try and save the game. It's not that hard, is it?
I love the backman's mentality because I was a backman most of my career, and the forwards, they get all a bit they're all look at me. Backman just gets down, kicks the goal. And it was one of the highlights of my career. Like, obviously, I'd worked so hard to come back.
Yep.
After my second knee, I had to be delisted and then train on, and then I got re-rookied. I got the last spot in March. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
And the Bucks and Walshy at the end of 2019 sort of said, "What do you want to do? Are you retiring?" I'm like, "No, I want to go again." And I said, if I play one more game, that's all I want. I just want that feeling one more time. If I can play another 50, great. But I'll do anything just to play one more game, and I think I can still add value. And I got 2 more games in, which was good. But that goal was unreal. It was good.
I don't know whether they went easy on you because it was your first game back. It's the 30 seconds of the rule. I reckon you had 2.5 minutes. The wind up and you're making sure all the cameras are on. And the boys we just had it up. We had it up before.
Well, the rule was that you have to start your run up within the 30, and then you can take as long as you like.
Yep.
And I, always went back a little bit further and very deliberate in my set shots, and being called Dennis Lilly a few times and a bit of a carry on. But it seems to work.
And then you were straight off.
Yeah, then I went straight off. Yeah, I'd already been told, I think, to come off. So it's funny how that happens.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have even been having a shot because Jack Madgen switched the ball from the wing inboard to me, and then I got a 50-metre penalty. That brought me to 35 out from goal. So I shouldn't have been down there in the first place, but it just happened. So, it was a good
opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What
you
want
to mention Steele?
Oh, the Steele, yeah. So, so during
the infamous Steele story
during COVID,
because you got out of it a little bit lightly, didn't you?
Well, it's funny. It's a great story, and it's actually the last. I was thinking about my suspensions because I probably should have been suspended a lot more than I have been in my career.
Yep.
I reckon I've only missed
off field or on field.
Nah, on field.
On field.
Yeah, on field, yeah. I'm pretty good, like to have a good time off the field, but very measured and try and make sure I'm doing the right thing. But this time, so I was this was 2020 in the hub.
Yep.
Not the hardest lockdown we'd had, but still COVID rules and all the rest of it. And Howie, the boys played, I think, GWS on the Friday night, and Howie did something to his knee. So the boys came back. So Saturday, Howie was miserable. So I spoke to him. He's in Hyatt.
Yep.
And I was in Carnegie, so not too far. And mate, I'll come over in the evening. I took a 6-pack, 3 for each of us.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll have a couple of beers. I'll come over, drive home, which I was allowed to do.
Yep.
Nothing silly.
No, nothing silly. Anyway, so I took my 6 beers over, got to the house, opened the door. Steele and Howie, I didn't know Steele was there. Steele and Howie are absolutely
blind.
I've walked into a shit show.
I'm going to have to get more than 6 beers.
Steele's is he a fucking lunatic on the piss?
He's not a lunatic. During the season, he's very good. He's got an off switch. There's no doubt about that. He knows how to have a good time, but he's, again, very measured. But they were pretty pissed. And I walked in and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing, mate? You drove? What'd you drive for? You're not driving home." So I'm like, well, I've nestled in. I'm like, well, how is Steele and I going to get home? Because we couldn't get an Uber.
Yeah.
And Steele's like, oh, Alicia is coming to pick us up, his wife.
Yep.
Alicia will come and get us about midnight. She'll drop you home, drop me home. No worries. I'm like, cool. I'll leave the car here. Anyway, we're having a good time. Gets to about 11:30. They're really, really pissed by this stage, and I'm pretty pissed as well.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, what time's Alicia coming, Steele? And he goes, she's not coming. And I'm like, okay, how are we getting home? He goes, don't worry about that yet. Give us an hour. Carry on for another hour. And I'm like, how do we get home? He goes, well, just book an Uber. We just got to go home. Just book an Uber. So I've booked an Uber because I couldn't drive. I had the keys there, cars out the front.
Yeah.
Literally could have driven home. No one would have known, but it's not ideal drink driving.
No.
Knew that was going to be a bad option. So avoided that like the plague. I'm like, we'll get an Uber. I know we can't, but it is what it is.
So you can't, the AFL said you can't
so
get...
no Ubers. There was no taxis, Ubers. You could only drive your own car and be in a car with your family or the other players.
Yep.
So just throwing it out there, staying wasn't an option.
It might have been. Yeah, we probably could have. But I told my wife that I was going for a couple of beers, had to go home. Yep. Steele was going home. Yeah, we probably could have stayed, but...
You'd rather face the wrath of the AFL and the government than your
32-year-old man. Like, we probably should stay in our own beds and go home.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Like you said, rather face the AFL music than the wives and the kids.
But you could have... It's only if the Uber driver reports it, though, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing.
It was an AFL rule, though.
Yeah,
so
but that's all right. But they might not have known.
No, so they didn't know. So this is the thing.
Because a lot of Uber drivers don't appear to be fans of AFL footy.
No.
Yeah. But the bloke would have had no idea. But basically, so we stopped. I booked the Uber, stop at my house on the way, and Steele's in Camberwell. So he would go through. Get in the Uber, carrying on. He goes, you know what, Dunny? I'm going to go to Wellesley's house.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to Wellesley's. I'm going home. You're going home. That's it. And he goes, no. I'm going to Wellesley's. I've been texting him. He's awake.
Yep.
I'm going to have a few nightcaps on his couch. All good. I said, mate, you can go to Wellesley's. I'm going home. It's about the only time I've ever said no to anything.
Yep.
And thank God. So I got out of the car, rebooked Steele's from Camberwell to Willie. That was it.
Oh, he's gone back to Williamstown.
Yeah, no, so we've left Hyatt, Howie's house.
Yep.
Dropped me in Carnegie.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Right, and then Steele's in Camberwell.
Oh.
Wellesley's on the other side of the bridge.
Oh, my God.
So it's not close.
No.
I'm going to Wellesley's.
Oh.
Anyway, I wake up the next morning with the kids about 7 o'clock, hungover and out of bed on the couch, put a movie on. Anyway, my phone rings, 7:45. Alicia.
Oh.
Dunny, have you seen Steele?
Oh, no.
I'm like, what?
Oh.
I'm like, no, we dropped me home and then he was going to Wellesley's house. I haven't seen him or heard from him. I'm like, that's not good.
No.
And then 5 minutes later, I hung up. I'm trying to ring Steele. No answer. 5 minutes later, Jeff Walsh rings me, the footy manager.
Oh.
All got really good relationships with Walshy. Very, very fair man.
Yep.
Very hard man when he wants to be. Dunny, how are you, mate? Have you seen Steele? Like, no, mate, not since last night. Oh, okay. Not ideal. We can't find him. Anyway, in the meantime, Steele's been to Wellesley's, obliterated drunk. walked out the front nude.
So who would have alerted at the club? Yeah.
Well, I reckon Alicia rang Walsh.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, well,
they're pretty close.
Yeah. Okay,
so Alicia's tried to ring Jeff and do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where Steele is.
Yep.
Just this is what's happened. And then Steele's wandered out the front of Wellsies, no clothes on.
He would have looked real nude with no hair on top as well,
and it
wouldn't
was
he?
cold too. That it was cold. And then I think Steelo sort of came to a little bit, and he's the one who knocked on one of the security boxes at the commission flats.
Oh.
And he said, "You've got to get me home. I need bring the police. They've got to come and pick me up and take me home." He knew he was fun. That's how bad he was. He actually asked the police to come and get him.
Oh,
wow. So did he make it to Wellsies?
Yeah, he got to Wellsies, and then I think they were drinking straight scotch.
Okay.
Beer, and he was already pretty full. And then, so Steele's come to a little bit and realised he didn't know where the fuck he was, and thought, I need to get home. And then the police dropped him home. And then it got out, well, what happened in your night? Who was there? How'd you get home? And the Uber got mentioned, and then who's in the Uber? So next thing, I see phone call from the AFL. And he's like, Dunny, I'm so sorry to ring you, mate. Usually, for not drink driving and getting an Uber, you'd be lauded and you'd almost get a medal, but I'm going to have to give you a week this time. I'm like, no worries, mate. He goes, and Steele got 4 weeks and I got 1. But I was playing reserves, so there was no VFL at the time. So I ended up playing a scratch match against Essendon on the MCG that Friday because it was an unsanctioned game.
Oh, yeah.
So nothing changed for me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't be picked in the seniors had I been selected.
Yeah.
But Steele was in the team, vice captain, and he got 4 weeks. And that was actually the last time I missed a week for being suspended for footy was for catching an Uber. No one's ever heard of that one before.
Bloody, fucking rough. Jeez, he would have felt shit waking up the next day.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was not great for about a week, guys. Pretty tough going. And, he's a high-profile player, vice captain.
Yeah.
Plus with what everyone else was going through.
It's funny now. I don't know how much Steele's spoken about the story, or I'm sure when he finishes he might talk about it a bit, but it was very strange because I thought I was just going to Howie's to have a few beers, maybe have a bite to eat, a couple of stubbies each, go home. I walked in and it was an absolute circus. Those two were as pissed as parrots. Must have been drinking from about midday.
Yeah.
It was about 6 p.m. when I got there.
Yep.
And we've drunk for another 6 hours, and then Steelo's decided to kick on to Wellsies again.
Camwell to Williamstown. That's just brutal.
I said, mate, I'm not going. You can do it. I tried to convince him otherwise, but he was adamant he was going to Wellsies.
Yeah, he must have really had the fire in the belly to kick on.
Yep. And I actually saw Wellesley at the function after the grand final this year, and just had a chat with him, and we having a bit of a giggle about that night and what actually happened. And he didn't know either because he passed out as well, asleep, and then he woke up and Steele had gone. He thought he just went home.
Where were his clothes?
All over the lounge room. I don't know how he got there. To be honest, Steele would be the only one.
So the cops grabbed him nude?
I think he had one of Ladate's jackets, which is Welles's daughter. I think he grabbed the vest or something to put on. I don't know. Yeah. He had something, but he had no clothes on besides that. And we've all been pretty pissed a few times, but I'm not one of those that just gets nude for no reason or just goes out the front door wandering.
No, well,
I'd rather sit in the middle of the couch here and just sink in and not move for.
Well, I've someone that's been arrested nude before. They, we've been through this story many a time, but they gave me like a plastic full, like a full plastic suit, like this little zip, like you'd wear to
an outbreak,
like a hazmat.
Yeah, like a hazmat, and and it was just I was sweating. It was the middle of summer, sweaty. You could see through it, my sweaty balls. And I thought, we got anything a bit fucking thicker. We could, and it was part of their punishment. They made me. They just kicked me out the next morning. So it was peak hour, admittedly in Albury. So, but there were people everywhere shopping, and I'm just trying to wave down a taxi. Got no phone, got no wallet, nothing. Just trying to. I was humiliating.
Oh, yeah, not good.
Got home. My dad was just waiting for me.
Yep.
Okay, you fucking idiot.
Must be something about your size, the no hair, because it's very similar.
Hairy legs
must be
and
something in it.
Ball magnet.
A premiership hero. Yeah.
Very good.
Mate, good stuff.
How's that?
Yeah, it's still going. Yeah, that's now we're 20,
new
mate.
machine.
Now we're
It's a new
23.
New machine, right?
Yeah, she's a beauty.
Give it a test.
Yeah, we could.
Might as well bloody wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to bloody
you want to plug or talk about? Well, we're getting back on another ep.
Yeah,
Still plenty to go through. So that was good.
So what are you doing? You're at the Bears, so you're coaching. Coaching at the Bears, and you're at cricket. You're at cricket Victoria, weren't you?
Yep, just finished up at cricket Victoria. So on the hunt for what's next at the moment. We've got a couple of interviews coming up, which would be nice. Hopefully, land something soon. Trying to stay in sport.
Yeah.
I've been in the player wellbeing space. Obviously, can't coach at cricket because I can't bat or bowl or throw. But love my sport, and having retired, and then I went into logistics for about 10 months and absolutely hated it.
Logistics?
Yeah. Oh, it's a nightmare job.
So were you best clubman at 2 clubs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how. It's a slim pickings.
So you're obviously highly regarded. Yeah, people like having you around.
Yeah, I love footy clubs.
Yeah.
And whether you're at the Bears, like we both are now, or you're at Collingwood, the best thing about the Pies was walking in every day, you felt like you're at a big local footy club.
Yeah.
Everyone's on the same page, whether you're the bootstrapper, selling memberships, strapping the players' ankles, or kicking the footies. Everyone's got a common goal. And I suppose that was the best thing recently with the Pies winning the flag is you look back at the people that you worked with who aren't players and how much it means to them, because their job is to make the organisation great and support the players on the field. So everyone plays a part.
Yep.
Not everyone gets a medal like we've spoken about, but it means so much to so many. So, once you've been involved in sport at some level, and that's why community sport's so good, because people just hang their hats on it for the whole week. It changes their mood, whether they win or lose on a Saturday. It sets their whole week up. So that's what's great about it.
Yep. It's this is fucking light years different to any other episode. Normally we're talking about wanking. And we talk a lot about shitting and
I feel like you set me up for failure with the jizz story right at the start. It was it's a long way to.
So we may as well bookend it with a bit of a bit of smut. So it's been a big for our live show. We've talked a lot about how you wipe your ass, and for our live show we actually got a toilet on the we went to Bunnings and bought one. We were meant to return it, but we got pissed and fucking sent it down the street on a shopping trolley. So we never got our money back. But so we set it up. We had the live audience, and we acted out how we both we're not going to make you do it. So, but how we both wipe, and it was we both. Because you just how you do it. It's how you've always done it. And then we were chatting about it one day, and we're like, fucking hell, we're completely different. So we ran did we ever run a
poll or something?
A poll?
Well, I think on the day I thought, see, I wipe back to front.
So I go balls up the back.
So you go through the front.
I go through the front.
You go through the front.
Yeah,
right.
and I thought that was sort of pretty natural, but no, on the day.
Now we're here, I might as well fill you boys in on how I do it, because I'm happy to share that.
Yeah.
I'm more of a folder, scruncher, bit of a mixture. I don't fold it perfectly. I don't just scrunch it and a messy fold.
Yep.
First few wipes I'm sitting down, then I like to stand up for the last wipe and just make sure I get all the angles. Because I've got a big, fat, sloppy ass too, so I need to make sure that I get in there.
Yeah,
that's sort of pretty similar to you.
That's probably sitting on the fence. But so the first time you go front.
No, back. Always back, sitting down, and then I stand up and give it a couple of wipes, and then I reckon I'm good to go. And there's nothing wrong with using a wet wipe either.
Oh.
There's always wet wipes around with the kids, and I'm happy to use them.
I think I might get onto them, because they got a bit of a scent as well, where...
It's not quite a shower. It's not quite a shower, but it's fucking close.
It's not a bidet. It's not a bidet, but yeah.
It's because I just stand straight up, balls to up the back, and but you get shit on your balls and all. Sorts of stuff.
You don't. I sort of. Yeah, well, you're not wiping it up your balls, but to be fair, the blowjobs have dropped off a bit. So,
what about the will you wipe once and then new bit of paper, or you fold it over and go again?
Oh, it depends on the mess.
On once.
Once?
I'll have another.
Fold over.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
It staggers me that people just wipe once and then get rid of it. That's a load of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Because sometimes...
I'm all about the environment.
Nah. I picked that up about you, Dunny.
because sometimes, you just wiping.
Yeah, I find I can't sort of, angle-wise, I can't really. It's like my
right
shoulder.
I've got a bit more on my hips now these days.
My right shoulder.
It's not as easy as it used to be.
Yeah, you might have to... years down the track, just employ a nurse or something.
I just get one of the Japanese little buttons that flush you straight up the knot.
That'd be good. That cleans them up nice.
The only issue with the wet ones to me is an absolute fucking no-brainer. But what do you do with the wet ones when you're done?
So I'd sort of fold it over
Flush.
and then take it with me and put it in the bin because you can't flush them.
No.
Yeah.
I would love to flush them.
There we go. So
but
everyone
you know what I'm like with my hands and the tools? I just can't afford a clog or a mess because I'm not going to be able to feel it.
That's right.
Put the hand around the S-bend and end up pulling out one of my nards. It's as long as my arm.
That's not happening. You know the kids are getting the blame, though.
Absolutely.
Which one of you fuckers has been flushed on
there's a piece of Lego in here, darling.
That's good. That's great. Well,
all right, mate. Well,
mate. Thanks heaps for that.
Thanks
really
for
appreciate it,
mate.
mate.
Yeah, beautiful.
And if you want to hit, we'll put Dunny's details up if you want to bloody get him for a Sporties or something like that.
His phone number, his address, and you pop
Or
around
you got
any time you want.
I'll take anyone around to Steele's. Good time.
Yeah, if you've got a cushy role for him at your sporting club or somewhere, you can make a bit of cash. Yeah. So, mate, thanks a lot.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks,
Yeah,
mate.
it's another episode of Good Banter.
Good banter. That's a good thing.